Hi, my name is Janice. I'm a branding strategist here in the city. I moved here about 2 years ago, and the dessert I made is hotdog cookies. The inspiration behind my dessert was some memories I have of me and my grandma and my mom making this dessert called hotdog, which is a Korean traditional street snack food. It's a pancake that's flattened and it's grilled in oil, and it's filled with brown sugar, cinnamon, and peanuts. And it's very reminiscing to me. I remember making it as a child growing up with my parents and my grandparents. And I wanted to make a dessert that had those flavors but could be taken and wasn't as messy, because the hotdog is very messy. So I think it's special for two reasons. First, this is the only dessert, I'm saying this in quotation marks, because obviously I've had like other desserts growing up, but it's one of the ones that I remember actually making with my family. I also think there aren't a lot of desserts growing up as an Asian American. It's usually like a plate of fruit, or in Korean culture, it's like a lot of shaved ice, a lot of red bean. It's the same flavors over and over again. So this was something that was a little bit different, but I was allowed to interact with as a young child because it was already messy to begin with. So the mess was there. I didn't have to create it. So yeah. The hotdog, if I had to explain it, it's like a yeast-based dough, and you let it rise for a little bit, and you fill it with this brown sugar cinnamon, and when you grill it, there's like cracks and holes in the dough, and it kind of just gets everywhere. And I wanted to have that flavor without having to go through the process of making that, because the yeast dough is very sticky, and I wanted it to be like, if I wanted to take it to a party or to take it to my friends, like something I could take on the go. I didn't make it necessarily just for the ease of this cookie, but I think in general, like when I try to make recipes, I try to turn something that isn't stereotypically a Western dessert, but incorporate flavors that like I've grown up with, or like in the Korean American culture, Asian American culture. So a lot of my friends don't know what a hotdog is. So I wanted to be able to infuse, like, and bring those flavors into a vessel that they knew, which is a cookie. So I think that was my main inspiration for that. I don't know if there's like one specific, but I just remember every time making those pancakes, it's like fun yelling. Like there's a lot of screaming, going chaos in the kitchen because everyone's hands are dirty. Like everyone's like kind of filled up with dough. It gets everywhere, like even if you don't, in places you wouldn't expect dough to get on you at some point. So I think that's like the main memory of us. It was like the best chaos you could imagine in the kitchen, making those pancakes. And I would have to like beg my parents to let me get the kit, which is, so it's like a kit you get in the Korean market. And they knew what that would bring if I asked them for that kit, but it was a good bonding moment, I think, for everybody. So it's traditionally a street food if you're actually like in Korea. So they sell it on the streets, it's like $1 or $2. Like it's very casual, but because we don't have that in America, I would get it if I had done something well, usually like in school, like it was like a little treat, like if I got a good grade on a test, like I would use that as leverage to buy the kit basically. Like, oh, I did this well, can we get it? Or can you celebrate this? So yeah. I decided to start baking. My first memories of the kitchen as a baker would probably be high school with those cake mixes, like the brownie mixes, which I still love to this day. And I kind of took a break during college just because the dorm life doesn't help. But I think when quarantine first hit, it kind of made me take a step back and realize that this was a passion that I had when I was younger. Like I went through a whole phase in middle school where I begged my parents for a KitchenAid stand mixer. I begged my parents for all the pretty cake tins, and it was just sitting there in my kitchen. And I actually went back home for a couple months, and I think having all those equipment with me again helped kind of reignite this love I had for baking. Because in New York, my apartment is so tiny. Like I have maybe like a couple cake tins, one 9x13-inch pan. I have one 9x13 pan, like the bare necessities, but being at home and having those like luxuries, it kind of helped me restart. And then I also decided to start my baking Instagram, which I was like, if I'm gonna do it, I'm just gonna do it properly. So I think all of that combined, plus the free time, is when I decided to. So it's actually a joke. So I used to have a hashtag called Food by Jan, and all my friends know me about that. So like, I like to cook a lot for my friends, bake a lot for my friends. So every time I bring something, they're always like, this is a Food by Jan special. And then that became my Instagram handle. And so all my friends just kind of know me as Food by Jan now. My Instagram has I try to do a lot of the recipes I've created, but also if I've tried somebody else's recipes, and just sharing good food on my stories, because I think I'm also an avid foodie. And I was debating if I wanted to make it like a foodie Instagram and a baking, but I just decided just baking because I don't want to mix the two. So, yeah. I do try to bake in my free time. I think when I went home, like during quarantine, just because I have more space, I tend to bake more. But I do use it as like a stress reliever, because when I bake, I usually kind of zone out. Like I'll go on Do Not Disturb on like every electronic I have. I'll like blast some music, and then it's just me and the stuff I'm baking. So that's kind of what the environment I like to be in, like unless my roommate is there and she's my taste tester. But so it is a stress reliever, and I try to bake as often as I can, but it's getting harder just because I think normal life is sort of returning. So the time of like solitude I have is decreasing. So yeah. I think if someone bought this kit, I would want the flavors to inspire them to go make a hot dog, is what I basically want. With the recipe, the flavors are very similar to that of a hot dog, because it's very basic. A hot dog is just brown sugar, cinnamon, and some sort of nut. And I want basically them to be wild with the cookie, to be like, I wonder what inspired this, and to look up what a hot dog is, to look up like how often people in Korea eat it or how it's made and stuff like that. So like the inspiration behind it is what I want people to dig further into. Growing up Asian American, there's just not a lot of desserts, like baked desserts at least. Besides like Korean breads that typically have the same filling, like some sort of custard cream, sort of red bean. All the flavors are very similar, but there was a lot of sweet flavors outside of baked goods that I had grown up eating. So whether that was like a dried persimmon or like this roasted bean powder, so stuff like that. And growing up Asian American, I also didn't eat a lot of Western desserts just because it's not something my parents were used to. I would eat it like in schools when we had a group birthday party or something. But my palate wasn't used to that kind of flavors, like the cookies, the cakes with like the thick frostings. So just trying to do a nice blend of those two flavors. And I have like certain baked goods that I typically go towards, like the type of baked goods, like a cookie or a brownie, and just trying to incorporate into those like casual daily baked goods these traditional Korean flavors, and making it almost like the mediator between these two cultures, if that makes sense. Yeah. I think the fact that this is becoming a kit says a lot to me, because I think this sort of desserts that I make is usually only shared with my close family and friends. So to be able to like, get the opportunity to share it with a wider audience makes me realize that like this is something that this was a goal I wanted eventually in life, and like this is like a stepping stone for me to be able to do that. Even hearing like the Kitsby team's like responses to the cookie kind of gave me some sort of encouragement, because I think I'm used to like my friends and family, and like obviously they're gonna be critical too, because I asked them to be very like biased and like give me responses to like what I make. But to have people who A, aren't used to those flavors, or B, don't even know what a hot dog is but like the flavors, makes me excited, because I'm like, if you like this, you'll love the original thing. This is just like a knockoff of that, so that makes me excited. Yeah. Being part of this kit during this time especially, I think, is very important, just because of all the negative media that's been happening. So I think this will be some sort of piece that we needed, or something positive we needed in relation to like Asian American news. But besides that, I am excited just because every dessert I make, that's my own recipe. I try my best to literally make the dessert Asian American. An insider tip when making this recipe is make sure your filling is totally covered by the dough, or else the dough will seep out and you'll kind of have the mess we're trying to avoid in your kitchen. So just making sure, and then it also helps prevent the inside from burning. So that's one key tip I would say. Also, if you can spray your hands when you're rolling the dough, it kind of helps the mess, which we're also avoiding, so yeah. My name is Janice and I made this hotdog cookie and encourage everyone to buy it just to get a glimpse of what a traditional hotdog is like in your own kitchen.
Except